Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is For Pause in a Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Today I'm going to be giving you some book recommendations for Pride Month. While it's very important to make sure that you are reading diversely all year long and reading books with representation all year long, June is definitely where that amps up in terms of LGBTQ representation. Which, I mean, there's an argument for the fact that maybe we should just be doing this all year long. But at the same time, this is a great celebration, and as a queer person, I do go all out in June. For that reason, I am going to be giving you a bunch of recommendations. I mostly have recommendations in the contemporary and the fantasy genre, and I will leave timestamps below for both young adult contemporary, and then YA, and then adult SFF. So some science fiction, some fantasy. So let's start out with YA contemporary books. I think the obvious recommendation here that everyone's going to be recommending is Heartstopper. This just became a Netflix show, so everyone is talking about it right now. I love these books. I love these graphic novels. They're very quick to read, so it will help you with your mid-year goals. But they're cute. They're adorable. There's 4 volumes. It's boy meets boy. There is a lot of talk about trying to figure out your sexuality, because Nick definitely thought he was straight, and then he's maybe not. There's also some discussion about eating disorders, specifically in the last 2 volumes. There's a lot more hard topic discussions, but especially if you're looking for something that's just light and fluffy, the first 2 volumes, adorable. Highly recommend these. Also, if you are participating in Whatever-a-thon this month, these are on Gavin's favorite list, so it will work for a bingo prompt. Okay, then we have The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This is actually a book that is told in verse, so poetry. I highly recommend the audiobook. The author narrates it. This made one of my best books of 2020, which is really hard for a YA to do, and I actually have 2 books in this stack that made my best books of their respective year. So that's how good they are. This book kind of goes throughout his entire life, but really focuses on his early college years, where he finds the drag community and really is able to find his identity with that community. And I thought it was adorable. I thought it was precious. I highly recommend this book. Then we have Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzalez. This made one of my best books of last year. This book is phenomenal bisexual representation. This is actually a book about a girl meeting a boy and falling in love with a boy, but she has called herself bisexual, and there's a really, really good conversation and commentary about can you call yourself queer, or are you still queer if you are having feelings for the opposite sex? Yes, bisexuality exists, but I would have loved to have this book as a teenager. I think that it was phenomenal. The commentary, the friend groups, there's so much representation in this book. It's so good. Then we have The Last Stray Poets of the Sea by Julia Drake. This is a book about a girl who goes back to her hometown, and then she is trying to solve this mystery of this ship that sank that supposedly her great-grandmother was on, and ended up founding the town because she was the only survivor. There is a sapphic relationship in this, and I believe she's pansexual. She doesn't really say, there's no labels or anything like that, but it definitely gives me pansexual vibes, which I am pansexual, so it really resonated with me. This was a 5-star read last year, and I absolutely loved it. Okay, this isn't actually contemporary, but I didn't know where else to put it because it's the only historical fiction. So we have Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. This is about a girl who is discovering that she likes girls, and which is not easy to do when you are a Chinese American in the 1950s. I think that the author handled the history really well, and I highly recommend it. All right, and then lastly for YA contemporary, we have Stay Gold by Toby McSmith. This book I just recently read and really, really loved. This is about a trans boy who was out as trans, but then moved to a new school and is trying to just pass as a boy. And obviously there's going to be some drama with that. It wouldn't be a YA contemporary without that. But then also, it is about this cute little relationship between him and the cheerleader. And there's a lot of like transphobia, like that it addresses and deals with homophobia. There is some definite trigger warnings for this regarding a public outing. So there is that. Just make sure that you check that. But this was really, really heartwarming, and the ending just sold it for me. Adult contemporary, especially romance, is where I live and breathe. This is the queer adult contemporary romance. This is my niche, okay? I've got so many recommendations for you. So buckle up. Okay. The first one I have, Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This is a really fun rom-com about a son of a rock star who is trying to like get good with the press, so he finds a fake boyfriend. It's like a mutually beneficial arrangement for both of them. It was a lot of fun, and Alexis Hall actually has other books also that are queer. I just haven't read them yet. This is the only one that I own. But he did just come out with one called A Lady for a Duke, which is about a trans character, and it's historical romance. So I've heard really, really good things about that. It's definitely one that is on my radar for this month. Talia Hibbert puts a lot of diversity into her books. I'm going to point out two of them. They are both straight passing relationships, but they do have queer characters in them. Take a Hint, Dani Brown is a bisexual main character. Dani is bisexual. She's got bright pink hair. Love her so much. She's one of my favorite characters in all of literature. And then a book that I just recently read and loved was That Kind of Guy. This is the third book in the Ravenswood series. You can read them out of order, but it kind of, like, there are little, like, cameos. Just like the Brown sisters, this is actually the second one in her series. This one, the main love interest, Zach, is demisexual, and I think that it was fantastic representation. I'm not demi, so I definitely would look at Own Voices reviews, but I think it was really, really well handled, and I think it was very real. It wasn't like trying to be stereotypical or anything like that, and it didn't feel like just a box to check off. There's a lot of books that try to do demisexual representation, and it's just like, oh, I don't have sexual attraction until I have a connection with someone, and then it's never spoken about again. This, like, it's a real part of his character development, and his character, like, who he is as a person. So I really appreciated that. We, of course, have Casey McQuiston, Red, White, and Royal Blue, and One Last Stop. This is a male-male romance between the Prince of Wales, I think, and the son of the President of the United States. It's a really fun royalty political romance. And then we have One Last Stop, which is a sapphic romance. It's kind of had a little bit of a sci-fi twist to it. It is about this girl who is stuck on the subway from the 70s. She's just kind of stuck on this one train, and the romance between her and the girl who gets on that train every morning. It was a lot of fun. Both of these do deal with some pretty heavy topics, but in a light way, like not trying to like make light of it, but there's so much humor in it as well, that you walk away from this book absolutely smiling. Then we have The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. This is one of my favorite books of last year. This is a male-male romance that takes place on the set of essentially this universe's The Bachelor. So it is about The Bachelor, but instead of falling in love with all of the girls that he's supposed to be falling in love with, he fell in love with his producer. And that's really interesting. This is a lot of mental health representation as well as, I believe, ace representation, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. It has been a while, and I have read a lot of romances since this, but it was really good. And then, of course, it would not be a recommendation of this year without Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. This is my favorite book that I have read all year. I love this book so much, and it really meant a lot to me when I read it. It's tabbed and annotated. This is on like Dani and Evelyn level, if that tells you anything. I've talked about this book so much, but quickly, in case you're new here, Delilah lives in New York. She is a photographer, and she gets asked to come back to her hometown to photograph her stepsister's wedding. And when she does that, she runs into Claire, who she knew from high school but wasn't really great friends with, and they have this little budding relationship. Claire is bisexual, and all of the characters have such amazing backstories and like such depth to them. The second book comes out this fall, and I'm just dying to get my hands on it. Then we have a couple of books that are not necessarily romance at its core. They're more just lit fic or contemporary fiction. So we have Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This is about a girl who goes to Vegas after getting her PhD and marries a stranger. And instead of getting an annulled, she decides she wants to get to know her new wife. It's definitely more of a finding yourself type of story with like the romance being secondary, but I really liked it, and I think that it was done really well, specifically talking about the intersection between being a Black woman, being in STEM, and being queer, like those intersections, and I think it was done really well. And then of course we have The Queen, Evelyn Hugo. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid is about a bisexual woman. This book is all about Evelyn Hugo, who is writing her memoir, her biography. She's telling it to the person who's going to write it, about her 7 husbands and who her true love was. Moving on to the SFF genre, we're going to start with YA. I don't have as many for this, but I do have some, so let's talk about it. First one I have is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. First off, this is a trans author. This book is about a trans boy, and his family is having a hard time accepting his gender, and so he tries to perform the Bruja ceremony, which is what the males of the family would perform. He performs it, and then does summon a ghost boy of a boy that had been murdered at his school. And so then there's this little mystery of like trying to figure out how he died, why he died, and then a cute little romance. So I think this was so cute, and just phenomenally done for a debut. Okay, a couple of sci-fi books. I have The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schrefer. This was, again, one of my favorite books of last year. This is cinnamon roll gays in space with a very dark twist that I can't really talk about because it's definitely spoilers. I am going to be rereading this. We're reading it in August as the group book for the Avengers Initiative Reading Challenge, so definitely get on board with that if you want to. But this book is phenomenal. It's so well done. Then we have The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dow. This is about a girl who lives in this post-apocalyptic world where music and art and any form of like self-expression has been banned, and that includes books. She has this hidden library, and then she befriends one of these aliens who is on the lookout for music, which I think was really, really like well done and well like put together. And this has a demi rep as well. Kind of a blend of fantasy and sci-fi. We have Iron Widow by Zoranjay Chow. This is so good. This is almost not young adult, but like it's still there. It could have easily been aged up to adult, and I think that like a lot of people, even if you don't typically like YA, you'll probably still like this book. But this is about this society where they have these like pilots, where you have a male pilot and a female pilot, and the female pilots are usually the ones that end up getting sacrificed, but this time she actually ends up killing her male pilot, and so that's why she's become the Iron Widow. This has poly rep, this is queer, this is just phenomenal. This is one of those characters that's like definitely not one of those likable main characters. She's definitely like a little rough around the edges. She like will not shy away from doing things that need to be done, and like I loved her for that. She was very prickly, but I loved her. Then we have In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. This is another one where the main character is definitely not like likable and sunshiny. None of mine are right now. None of these recommendations are. It's fine. But this is another poly rep, and the main character is a pansexual. And this has some zombies in it, has some underworld in it. It's pretty good. Then we have Beyond the Ruby Veil by Mara Fitzgerald, and then there is also a sequel to this, so it's a duology. It's very short, and the main character is queer, and she is actually betrothed to a queer man. So lots of queerness, but this is about a society where they are in a severe drought, and so people are sacrificed and their blood can be turned into water, and she's gonna overthrow that system because that doesn't seem great. Okay, we have Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Neon. This is actually a trilogy, and it is a sapphic relationship. It is about a girl who has to become a paper girl, which is basically the concubine for the Demon King, and then again, we're overthrowing the patriarchy here. We love that. And this is, again, a complete trilogy. I haven't read it in several years, so I'm really excited to do a reread of it this year. This book ended up on my categories TBR. And then I have 2 graphic novels. I have The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Osterach. I'm calling this fantasy. It's kind of like, it's very soft, very light fantasy. It's more contemporary, but she does fall in love with a Selkie. So there is a fantastical element to it. The art style is beautiful. This is definitely a book that I'm really glad that I have physically. Then we also have Always Human by Ari North. This is a sci-fi graphic novel about a society where you can have a mod for your body to like fix health problems, fix genetic modifications, to fix the way you look. And then there is a girl who does not use any modifications. And then there's this cute little sapphic romance, and it's adorable. I love this book. Moving on to my adult books, I don't have as many. The first one I want to talk about is the Wayward Children series. I don't really know where to put these, so that's why I'm going to put it first, and we're going to talk about it kind of in both. Some people classify this as YA or even middle grade. It's not middle grade, but it's usually shelved in the adult fantasy section, so that's where I'm putting it. There is so much representation in this, both in like sexuality and identity and gender identity, so this series as a whole is very diverse. Love it. I have The Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Hackworth. This doesn't have a ton of representation as far as it like being a really big part of the story, but the main character is pansexual, so I really identify with it. This has one of the greatest definitions of pansexual representation or pansexuality that I have read in a book. And it just really resonated with me, and that is that I am attracted to interesting minds and interesting people. The specifics don't matter, which really resonated with me, and it's one of the definitions that I have clung to. Another one of the books that I really loved this year, and that was Malice by Heather Walter. This is a sapphic retelling of Sleeping Beauty, where Aurora falls in love with Maleficent. It's a great villain origin story, and it's highly spooky, but it's not really like epic high fantasy in the way that it's not understandable for people. Then we have A Spindle Splintered, and then the sequel is A Mirror Mended by Alex E. Harrow. This is a little novella, and it's kind of like a multiverse, Spider-Verse type thing. This is another Sleeping Beauty retelling, but it kind of brings in like all of these different Sleeping Beauties from all of these different universes, which I really liked. Wish it would have been longer, but I think it did a really good job. And then lastly, I have a sci-fi, and that is A Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. And this is kind of like if Red, White, and Royal Blue met Star Wars. That's the best way to explain this book. It's a very politically driven, but very politically motivated. But these are also just like 2 chaotic gays. And then lastly, I'm going to be talking about a historical fantasy paranormal book that I recently read, and that is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. And this has polyrep, bisexual rep, or pansexual. It's not really defined. But this is kind of like Dracula's story, and it was very well done. It's also a really short book. The audiobook is fantastic for this, and the prose is just written so well. I'm really excited that this is getting traditionally published. I know that I probably missed some books, so leave some more recommendations down in the comments below. That is all I have for you today. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below the video, and all of the other links to my social media will be in the description below if you'd like to be my friend on any other platform. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.